Historical K-dramas tend to depict a highly romanticized version of the past that never existed. They're often a fantasy of the good old days, back when chivalry was still alive. Because these shows are a product of the 21st century that is meant to appeal to contemporary audiences, the main characters themselves tend to be quite anachronistic. The female lead is usually a feisty independent feminist who can easily get out of an arranged marriage, and the male lead is a gentleman who respects women and doesn't have 20 concubines. Depicting the past as violent automatically makes the plot tragic. In romantic stories, oppressive and patriarchal Confucianist social structures are played down, while the good traditional values like honor and monogamy are emphasized. The protagonists are always progressive and the villains are misogynists. Even in shows that take their historical context very seriously, the main characters are usually still rich and upper class, and their servants are depicted as loyal friends and not as slaves. And before you roll your eyes and say, "Oh my god, it's not that deep, you're not supposed to overthink it," I know, this is exactly the point I'm trying to make. Historical K-dramas usually don't want the audience to think too hard about any of these things. The 2024 show Dare to Love Me flips this concept on its head. The show takes anachronistic historical K-drama character archetypes and puts them back into the modern setting intentionally, to make the audience question whether the past should be romanticized in the first place. This show is asking all the right questions. What is Korean culture and which parts of it should be preserved? And would you answer this question the same way if you imagined yourself as a servant and not as nobility? Would you actually want to date a Confucian scholar from Joseon? Yes, you, the 21st century you. What do you find appealing about this type of man, and how does this idea fit into our time? And if this description convinced you to pause this video to go watch the show, let me warn you that despite the cool premise, this is a very mediocre KBS show that I'm frankly not even sure I would recommend. Or maybe watch like the first 8 episodes, because this is how long this K-drama should have been. Dare to Love Me has no business being 16 episodes long. The story really drags and offers almost no payoff at the end, which I will get to. But I still want to discuss the themes, because the show is posing a lot of interesting questions that are worth talking about. And before we get into spoiler territory, consider subscribing to my Patreon, where you will find a secret video essay that was too risque for YouTube, and monthly bonus videos in which I discuss every single movie and TV show I am currently watching. One of the central questions in this K-drama is, what is Korean culture and which parts of it are worth preserving? Is it the art? Is it the people? Is it the social structure? Much of what South Koreans today consider to be traditional Korea emerged during the Joseon era. The male lead in Dare to Love Me was raised in a traditional village that still lives like their ancestors did, without modern technology, in order to preserve the culture. Yoon-bok, who is the grandson of the village head, spends his days tracking down stolen historical artifacts from their private collection and fighting thieves wearing hanbok. The female lead, Hong-do, is a fashion designer who is tasked with finding the essence of Korean culture for an upcoming collection with an evolution of tradition theme. She is exploring architecture and traditional art for references, which is a travel to Korea ad, but it is also more than that. She is trying to figure out which parts of Korea's past are still relevant today. Both our leads spend their days thinking about beautiful art and traditional clothing, which obviously need to be protected. Or do they? The villain of this story, who is stealing all the artifacts and selling them on the black market, has a different, more cynical perspective on the value of these objects. You see, he also grew up in this village, but unlike the protagonist, who gets to LARP as a classy nobleman, Junho grew up at the bottom of the social hierarchy. He and his mom were treated like slaves, serving the male lead's rich abusive family. This is all happening in the 21st century, by the way, and it is most definitely illegal. Someone should investigate this village. Is slavery also a traditional Korean value that needs to be preserved? No wonder the male lead's grandpa is so invested into keeping the village closed off from the world. He's at the top of this hierarchy and benefits most from this arrangement. Is he honoring his heritage and protecting traditions? Or does he just really like being a rich and powerful man with servants and an expensive art collection that nobody besides him gets to see? Even though Junho is now an adult and a successful businessman, the village elders still see him as a stupid commoner. He can sarcastically say, "Oh, you're so noble, a lowly servant like me could never appreciate this vase." And the rich guys are eating it up because they unironically think that. I honestly don't think Jun-ho is wrong. The way these people treat him and his mom, they kinda deserve to get robbed. The grandpa is the real villain actually, not Jun-ho. This is not quite the stance the show is taking, because Jun-ho does go to prison for his crimes, and so does the other villain, who the audience is not emotionally invested in. But the grandpa doesn't face any consequences. He gets to peacefully step down from his role and give his position to his grandchildren, which he was already going to do anyway. This is a cute rom-com, so in the end, all the likable characters are forgiven and everyone is friends again. Yay! Another way this show examines which parts of Korean heritage are still relevant today is by deconstructing masculinity. Yoon-bok, our male lead, serves as the model of the ideal Confucianist man. He's polite, he's respectful, he's chaste. He would never touch a woman he's not married to. He wouldn't even dare sit face to face at the same table with her. He's ever chivalrous and principled male lead from a historical K-drama, except he doesn't quite fit into the 21st century. Yoon-bok is polite to a fault. For example, he doesn't want to step on the female lead's shadow, which makes walking next to him really annoying. In the beginning, he also insists on wearing hanbok all the time. He even tries to get into a nightclub dressed in his finest clothes, but he doesn't pass the dress code. The female lead's brother gives him a makeover to go with the times. Yoon-bok needs to figure out what kind of man he is, now that he moved to the 21st century. What does a modern version of him wear, and what are his values? He gradually finds his style and drops a lot of his weirder habits, but he doesn't try to be someone he's not. Yoon-bok still respects women, but in a modern, feminist way, and not in a benevolent, paternalistic way. He is a green flag boyfriend who treats the female lead as his equal. He's juxtaposed with the modern Korean man, who has a very different brand of masculinity. The kind women who fantasize about protagonists in historical K-dramas are fed up with in real life. In the beginning of the show, the female lead is dating a guy who's cheating on her. Are there no good men left anymore? They don't make them like they used to. Hongdo wants to date a man who is the opposite of her ex, but at what cost? Would she give up her dream of working in Paris to become a trad wife who lives in a village without proper Wi-Fi? The escapist fantasy might be appealing for a bit, but she has a really cool job. She's not going to give it up for a man. And it's not just her. Every woman in this show, with the exception of the villain's mom, is strong, independent, and emancipated. In this show, the men are the ones who need to liberate themselves from patriarchy, not the women, which I really love as a theme. When the male lead was a child, the grandpa kicked out his mom and sister from the village and made up a lie that he was abandoned, so he can concentrate on his future role as the next village head. For a conservative man who wants to uphold traditional societal structures, the grandpa is way too eager to separate a child from a loving parent. Yoon-bok wants to be the good Confucian son who fulfills his filial duty, but he also doesn't want to live like this for the rest of his life. He has his own dreams. He wants to become a webtoon artist and live a normal life. The grandpa is also trapped by the patriarchal system, and he has a hard time admitting it, because being treated like nobility just feels so good. Why would he want to give up his privileges? Back in the 70s, he also had a rebellious phase and wanted to run away from his responsibilities to be with the woman he loved. But he decided to give up his desires to uphold the system, and he expects the same from his grandson. Camille, the love of his life and the female lead's boss, is the only person who can call him out for being stuck up in his phase. She actively tries to get him to modernize the village and turn his community into a democracy. But she's also a neoliberal girl-boss feminist. She's not trying to smash her patriarchy, she just needs to make the brand collab happen. By the end of the show, the grandpa begrudgingly accepts that maybe the village does need bare minimum modernizations, which I guess absolves him from accountability? Yoon-bok tries to help the community by becoming the reformer that they need, but he's just doing this out of duty. His heart is not in it. At the very end of the show, Yoon-bok gets to finally live his life on his own terms, and his sister becomes the new village head. Finally, a woman is in charge. She also opens up the art collection to the public, so now people can actually come and see all the cool stuff their family was hoarding. Because that is how you preserve Korean culture, by sharing it with everyone. The whole show has this running theme of evolution of tradition. The conclusion this K-drama comes to is that to really preserve traditions, we need to move forward to the future, and tradition will deteriorate if we leave it as is. Even though Dare to Love Me makes some great points about conservatism and traditions, it is quite underwhelming as a K-drama. This is one of those shows that forgot what made it good in the first place. The ending is very frustrating because the romance takes a backseat by the end of the show. And I hate to say this, but so does every other subplot. Remember how the male lead's sister became the new village head? We actually don't get to see it. This fact is revealed through a quick exposition Google search. Does Yoonbok become a webtoon artist? No idea. This topic is dropped completely. I think they literally forgot that this was an important subplot on his hero's journey. And that big fashion show they have been building up to the whole season? It happens off screen. I guess this was not important. The only storyline that gets properly resolved is the mystery of who was stealing all the art. And plot twist, it was the character nobody cared about all along. Very anticlimactic. I was also annoyed by the store brand knockoff Titanic soundtrack. And I hate how underwritten the female lead is. Yoonbok gets a traumatic backstory and finds his new identity, but the female lead doesn't do anything interesting. She gets hired for her dream job in episode 3, and the announcement that she will go to Paris happens in episode 6, and she kinda doesn't do much after that. And I mean it literally, they never do anything productive at work. This is a big reputable fashion house, and they only have 3 employees who never design anything. They just sit around and talk in their cute office. In one of the episodes, Camille spends hours reimagining a traditional shoe, but all she does is superglue some pearls to them. In the universe of this show, everyone is super impressed by her skills. But I'm not. The final output, the great collection that is meant to signify evolution of Korean traditions, is as bad as you would expect based on the amount of effort they put into it. We only get to see 3 outfits, and I gotta say, these are the most boring modern hanbok designs I have ever seen. It's a huge pet peeve of mine when shows about creative characters don't bother getting good art props. Looks like they didn't have a budget for anything good, which really undermines the whole storyline. Dare to Love Me was asking all the right questions, but this K-drama is too boring to sit through to find out what the answers are.